Day 1258 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 1,057,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,010 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 1 tank, 8 APVs and 28 artillery. Then direct to the map we go, where Ukraine intensified its summer drone campaign because in a significant overnight operation, Ukrainian drones dealt a serious blow to Russian air power. With the earliest reports on what we know so far, the strike-in of 5 fighter jets at the Saki Air Base in occupied Crimea, and as part of an attack executed by the Alpha Special Operations Center of Ukraine's security service that targeted this crucial hub for Russian air operations over the Black Sea. One Su-30SM, costing about 50 million USD, but otherwise largely irreplaceable anyway, was completely destroyed, another severely damaged, and 3 Su-24 bombers reportedly hit. The strike also targeted a warehouse storing aviation munitions, compounding the damage to Russia's aerial arsenal within the occupied peninsula. As for the operation, these attack drones were launched from the Mykolaiv area, heading towards the Sea of Azov and Krasnodar, with air defense activity also noted over Amiansk to the north and Feodosia to the southeast. And so these latest reports of this operation truly underscores an evolving strategic shift, showcasing Ukraine's continued focus on degrading Russia's military capacity. As for the Russians, they're simply being reminded that they will never be safe on Ukrainian soil. And with a delay in video or photos of these types of events, usually to the tune of about 1 or 2 days, we should see some serious updates shortly. Then to Russia's Volgograd region, where Ukrainian kamikaze drones struck another transport corridor overnight, targeting the Arshida railway station, leading to a significant fire erupting with power lines damaged, disrupting the train movement of military supplies to the front lines, which is exactly as intended for these types of strikes. However, this event appeared to not make contact, the drones not make contact, with a nearby substation. Nonetheless, train and flight services were halted, and the event amounts to another bad day for Russian rail. Then, speaking of Russian railways, it was just later yesterday when 5 rail cars carrying fuel overturned, derailed, en route from the Venino port in Russia's far east, leaking fuel and wreaking damage. The cause is not known, though the incident has officially led to a criminal investigation, which never leads to much in the way of outcomes to stop these events from happening again. But common causes for such derailments include mechanical failure, human error, improper loading, sabotage, or infrastructure issues, with Russian derailments in the broader context showing no signs of abating and is likely to see continued deterioration of their services. The long-term stability depends on resolving international tensions or achieving self-sufficiency in critical components, both of which are very uncertain prospects as of August 2025. Then back across the map and to a brief mention of the bordering Bryansk region, which got a chance to shine its light by way of an inbound Ukrainian aviation strike, heavily damaging a bridge used for military movements by the armed forces of Russia in the Stary Yukovichi settlement, near to the border with Ukraine. Now to the main map, where Russian forces have reportedly advanced into Kupiansk's outskirts from the northwest, with fighting ongoing up until this moment. These updates follows weeks of intensified assaults where Ukrainian troops reported heavy Russian use of their aviation-launched Fab 500 munitions, though as of now, Ukrainian defenses have repelled multiple more recent attacks near Kupiansk, with inbound attacks broken up north of the city. Still, evacuations in the town are underway in the southern suburbs, amid fears of river crossings from Poliznikovka by the invading forces further south on the map, which is some ways away, but is part of strong precautions for the civilian population. Then to the southern end of the map in Berdyansk, the occupiers' repair base on the territory of the former Berdyansk Zhivaki plant was de-energized following reports of an explosion and as per advice from the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine. This location was considered a key target for the area as personnel, weapons and other equipment was stored at the location. As of now, the final consequences of the explosion and the extent of the damage are being clarified, but where it looks to be another sorry day for the occupiers who can no longer consider themselves safe, as far into the rear as they can get, up to the shores of the Azov Sea. Then also, as for Zaporizhia, as part of the to and fro for the southern oblast, as the AFU have liberated the Plavny settlement in the northwestern direction as it comes into Ukrainian positions, and on this one, with Russian sources also confirming the same on their loss of terrain. So as for this latest front of heated exchanges between militaries, the expectation for the region might be one of more of these back and forth exchanges of land, but it's certainly a location that is a long way from home for the Russian army, meaning that they always have to deal with a supply crunch on this front, vulnerable and low on certainty as it comes to inbound deliveries of munitions and other supplies in an adequate and timely manner, and for a concern that now has only become more exacerbated by us recently seeing the Ukrainian military setting their summer sights on the very foundations of the Russian war machine, their rail infrastructure. Then to head back up the map momentarily, with very much announced difficulties on this front for the Ukrainian forces right now, with the ongoing risk for the town itself, especially as it comes to the southwest, with Russian reconnaissance and force groups or other units pushing a number of attacks along the edges of the frontline town. But the concerns for a Russian capture exist here every week. It's not new, but what is new for today was AFU fighters who, following a successful counteroffensive, expelled Russian forces from the central part of the village of Lysivka. Meanwhile, and around these parts of the map, although specifically noted in Kherson on this latest report, more of an ongoing update, as Russian authorities have intensified efforts to control local media by replacing residents' satellite dishes with Russian models that exclusively broadcast Kremlin propaganda channels. This campaign, ordered by the occupying region's governor, aims to block Ukrainian signals and cleanse the information space, as per a Ukrainian Resistance Center report. As a result, local Russian teams go door to door, often forcing compliance under threat, but many locals resist by refusing installations, hiding old dishes, or switching to alternatives like the seldom acquired Starlink devices or other online streams. Now, all of this builds on from earlier occupation tactics seen in Ukraine since 2022, including destroying TV towers and hijacking broadcasts to spread disinformation. And now, with the most recent reports coming from last month highlighting the ongoing pushback, with residents in many areas south of the river now limited to Russian TV, though sabotage and underground networks persist. And as you just might expect, pro-Russian sources downplay any resistance, claiming voluntary adoption for better access, quote-unquote, but independent analyses note widespread defiance amid broader information warfare for the very much military-invaded region. I mean, how else could it be? So, this is just the type of newfound freedom that Russia forces on its neighbors, which also happens to force Ukrainians to consume broadcast media entirely in the Russian language. I would say this war looks more and more like an occupation every day, but it already looked like that since day one. Then to take a look around the map, because if Russia is supposedly protecting the Russian-speaking people of the region, then who will protect the Ukrainian speakers of these regions? The armed forces of Ukraine. That's who. So this is where the old somewhere in the east segments come in, because in some of the latest we've seen, with the AFU's Murmasa unit, shown to burn down a Russian Ural truck, which is impressive given that these are harder to come by these days for the Russian forces, suggesting the truck wasn't immediately at the front lines, but spotted and destroyed further in the rear due to Ukraine's increased range in daily frontline FPV weapons platforms. Then to the air, as the Rubaka unit of the 77th Separate Airmobile Brigade has protected Ukrainian civilians from 2 more incoming Molnina attack drones. Also seen on the map, another destroyed Russian Ural 4320 truck, which you can see when zooming in seconds before the impact of the aerial strike. Moments after, and right as the back half of the burning truck creates a scene which certainly would remind most of a DeLorean line of fire, 3 occupiers jump ship, seen there heading for the hills. Now to the news, and where all eyes are on India in the last day, as the White House has accused the country of financing Russia's war in Ukraine by continuing to purchase Russian oil. Stephen Miller, Deputy White House Chief of Staff, stated that it was not acceptable for India to continue financing this war by purchasing the oil from Russia, and noting that India's oil imports are basically on a tie with Russian oil exports to China, a fact he called astonishing. President Donald Trump has previously escalated pressure, threatening a 25% tariff on Indian goods, effective now from August 1st, plus additional penalties on Indian purchases of US arms. India, the world's 3rd largest oil importer, relies on Russia for about 1/3 of its crude, importing over 1 million barrels daily from January to June of this year. And while state refiners paused purchases in late July due to narrowing discounts on Russian oil, government sources confirmed India will continue buying Russian oil, citing long-term contracts and energy needs, as Prime Minister Modi's government remains somewhat defiant, prioritizing affordable energy for India's 1.4 billion people. So all of these dynamics place India in a precarious balancing act on the global stage. While New Delhi maintains energy ties with Moscow, it also remains locked in a simmering rivalry with China, a country whom it shares not just a border, but frequent skirmishes and unresolved disputes in the Himalayas. That same geopolitical tension has pushed India to increasingly rely on US arms and defense technology, viewing Washington as a crucial counterweight to Beijing's increasingly assertive stance or posture in the region. So, with Russia as a historic ally and the United States becoming its rising strategic partner, India now finds itself walking a diplomatic tightrope, threading the needle between affordable oil, military necessity, and everything in between, right in the middle of the shifting sands of global alliances. Then to some other news, and speaking of China, and to a very different kind of hardware update today, with this footage of a Chinese drone that has been seen crawling, flying, swimming, and even launching rockets from its back. But perhaps what should most alarm defense officials worldwide is the fact that this isn't even military grade, instead being 3D printed, all-terrain robots built by, in this case, a civilian hobbyist in China. And so videos like this don't just raise eyebrows, they accelerate the urgency around both drone defense and the rapid development of next-gen unmanned systems. It all feels eerily familiar to, no doubt, a recent attack where Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb, occurring back in June, becoming the only known small FPV drone strike ever conducted with such effect behind enemy lines, which damaged or destroyed dozens of Russian aircraft. So the game is evolving fast, with constant adaptation required. Therefore, staying ahead requires constant innovation to whatever the battlefield throws at it next. But then in some more news, and what's not so advanced, is where Ukraine's intelligence network has obtained classified internal documents on Russia's newest nuclear submarine project, the 955A Boria. The files include full crew lists, combat instructions, ship schematics, engineering reports, and daily operational schedules. Most importantly, the data reveals technical limitations such as missile reliability issues, navigation and maneuverability problems, armament capacity limitations, noise and stealth concerns, and much more. But not only for this new submarine, but also for other Boria-class Russian submarines, which just happens to be the key element of Russia's Russia's nuclear triad now, with this latest Russian submarine joining the Northern Fleet just less than 2 weeks ago, with Putin personally said to be overseeing its deployment, which could go some way to explain the technical limitations of the platform after being micromanaged by one Vladimir Putin. Then to head across to a quick funny to round off the video today, as Russia celebrated its Airborne Forces Day in Russian and occupied regions over the weekend. It's an event also known as Paratroopers Day and a celebration of the elite VDV, considered a prestigious and highly skilled branch of their military, often involved in strategic and special operations, but their prestigious ways were not exactly evident for the celebrations, which only got worse as the day dragged on. Not a lot of professionalism to say the least, with one such chap, that I can only presume to be one retired personnel of the VDV, caught sneaking a quick drink from a street puddle. Ah, Russia's best and finest in all their glory. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!